Hi guys, it's Miss Emily again. I'm really excited for this week's story because we're going to be reading a story about what happened on Easter because Easter is coming up really soon this weekend. And so I have this book that we're going to read, and I also have these colorful Easter eggs. And each one has something inside of it that we're going to open as we read, and it's going to help us tell and remember the story of what happened on Easter. So as we read, I'll tell you which egg we're going to open, and we'll open it together, and we'll talk about what's inside each egg. So, Benjamin's box. I want to tell you that this story is about a little boy named Benjamin, and it's actually a fiction story, which means it's not completely true. So the little boy of Benjamin, he's not a real boy. He didn't really live. But everything that happens in the book is a true story. So everything that happens to Jesus in the book really did happen. So even though the character of Benjamin isn't a real character in real life, everything else that happened is a true story of what happened. It comes right from the Bible. So let's get started. Benjamin's box. Long ago, in the faraway land of Palestine, there lived a boy named Benjamin. His small, humble home was nestled into a wall of other houses, almost hidden on a narrow back street in the bustling city of Jerusalem. Benjamin loved Jerusalem because God's temple was there. More than that, Benjamin loved God. His grandfather had taught him many things about God when he was just a tiny boy. Benjamin talked to God a lot. He whispered prayers each night at sunset, and in the morning he always gave thanks for the new day. Benjamin's parents worked hard weaving and selling cloth, but their family was still quite poor. So Benjamin helped out by taking odd jobs around the city. Everyone in Jerusalem seemed to know Benjamin. They could always count on him to be honest and work hard. One bright spring morning, Benjamin sat outside in the sunshine. In his hands was a wooden box. "Hi, Benjamin," called his friend Eli. "What's that you've got?" "It's my treasure box," said Benjamin. "My grandfather gave it to me before he died last year. He said it was very, very special." Eli opened it and looked in. "There's nothing in it except for some old straw. How can this be a treasure box?" Benjamin shrugged. "I don't have any real treasures yet, but my grandfather said that this straw came from the bed of a baby who was born in a stable. My grandfather was a shepherd then, and he said the baby would grow up to be a king." "Why would a king be born in a stable with cows and donkeys?" Eli laughed and closed the box. "I heard some sort of king is coming today. His name is Jesus. Want to come to the city gate and watch for him?" "Sure. My grandfather took me to hear a man called Jesus once. I liked listening to him." Crowds were already lining the street. Some people cut palm branches from trees and handed them around. Others laid garments on the street like a carpet. "Wow," said Benjamin. "He must be a king." The two boys squeezed through just as the donkey entered the gate. "That's him." Benjamin pointed to the man on the donkey. "That's Jesus." "Hosanna! Hosanna!" cheered the crowd as they waved their palm branches in the air. "Hail to our new king!" yelled an old man beside Benjamin. "Why does a king ride an ordinary donkey?" asked Benjamin. The old man turned. "It means he comes in peace. Jesus has come to set us free. Hail King Jesus!" Benjamin looked into Jesus' face as he drew near. Jesus smiled back, as if they were friends. The donkey plodded along, and Benjamin followed, pushing through the crowd to keep up. At last he drew close enough to pet the donkey. A small tuft of hair came off in his hand. That night, Benjamin placed the bit of donkey fur in his treasure box. Right, so now we're going to open the blue egg, the first egg. Right, so inside we have a little donkey, right? Because it just talked about how Jesus came in on Palm Sunday riding into the city on a donkey. And everyone was so excited to see him, waving palm branches and singing to him. So that's why we have this donkey so long. In the next days, Benjamin and Eli went to hear Jesus whenever they could. One day, as they waited, Eli whispered, "The priests have offered money for someone to betray Jesus." "Why?" asked Benjamin. "What has he done? He only speaks the truth." "They should listen to him." "The priests are jealous of him. They want Jesus to stop teaching," said Eli. "Someone should warn Jesus," declared Benjamin. "I'm not afraid. I'll go." He pushed through the crowd until he reached one of Jesus' friends. He tugged on the man's sleeve. "Excuse me, sir. Are you with Jesus?" "Yes, I am," the man answered. "Please, I need to warn Jesus. He's in danger. The priests are offering a bribe to betray him. You must tell." "Shh," said the man. "Do not repeat this. I'll take care of it." And he slipped a coin into Benjamin's hand. "Thank you, kind sir. What is your name?" "Judas Iscariot," said the man as he turned away. That night, Benjamin took the shiny denarius into his treasure box. All right, so now we're going to open the next egg, the pink egg. So inside, we have 3 silver coins. So on that page, it just talked about how Jesus' friend Judas got this money so that he would tell them where Jesus was, because there were some people that wanted to hurt Jesus and wanted to find where he was. So Judas, he took this money, and in exchange for it, he told the people that wanted to hurt Jesus where they could find him. That doesn't sound like a very good friend to me, does it? So we have a donkey and 3 coins. All right. The next day, Benjamin was asked to help his aunt get ready for unexpected guests. They would be coming for Passover dinner. He went right to work carrying water jugs. "Did you hear the guest of honor is Jesus?" said a servant girl. Benjamin's eyes opened wide. Imagine, to serve such an important man. He must work hard and do his very best. 2 of Jesus' friends came to help, and Benjamin listened as they talked of Jesus. They loved him so much. Soon, Jesus arrived and their supper began. If Benjamin listened carefully, he could hear some of their words. But what did Jesus mean when he said the wine was like his blood and would be spilled, and the bread to be broken like his body? It made no sense. Then Jesus said someone would betray him. Benjamin smiled. He wasn't worried. He knew that Judas would prevent this. After supper, Benjamin found a broken cup. He saved it to remember the night when he served Jesus. All right, our next egg is the light purple. And so we have this little cup. Because right before Jesus died, he had a dinner with his friends. Right? So this was the cup. Later, Jesus and his friends left to pray. Benjamin wanted to pray too. He followed at a distance, watching as they finally stopped in a garden. Benjamin sat beneath an olive tree and broke off a twig. He couldn't hear Jesus, but he knew he was praying. Benjamin prayed too, and as he prayed, he rubbed the twig between his hands. Before long, his eyelids grew heavy, and he soon fell asleep. Loud yelling startled Benjamin. He leaped up in time to see soldiers taking Jesus away. "Stop!" he cried. "You can't take him. He hasn't done anything." "Shh," said one of Jesus' friends, holding Benjamin back. "What's wrong?" asked Benjamin. "Why are they taking him?" "They want to question him." Benjamin pulled away. "Why didn't you stop them?" But the man just shook his head and walked away. All of Jesus' friends were gone now. Benjamin saw the smooth twig in his hand. "Dear God, please take care of my friend Jesus," he prayed as he walked. At home, he placed the broken cup and the twig in his box. All right, our next egg is the orange, dark orange. Inside we have 2 hands. What does it look like they're doing? Praying? You're right. They look like they're praying. And this page, it talked about how Jesus, he went out into the garden after the dinner, and he sat down and he prayed to God. Did you know that Jesus prayed to God too, just like we do? I think that's pretty cool. Right. Benjamin, did you hear the news? Asked Eli the next morning. They've locked Jesus up. Everyone says that Judas got a bunch of money to betray him. Benjamin gasped. He had told Judas about the bribe. Maybe this was his fault. He said goodbye to Eli and wandered through the city. What could he do? Was there any way to help? Sounds of shouting made him stop, and he turned to see an angry crowd. Jesus deserved it, snarled the old man. He claims to be God's son. He should be stoned, yelled another, shaking his fist. What's going on? Asked Benjamin. Did they hurt Jesus? What do you know about Jesus? Demanded the old man. They all turned and stared at Benjamin with angry eyes. No, nothing, he stammered. His gaze dropped to the ground, where he noticed a small strip of leather. He picked it up. It was from the whips used by the soldiers. He tucked it in his tunic and slipped away. Why would anybody hurt Jesus? All right, our next egg, green. So on that page, it talked about how they found Jesus and they started to hurt him. And they used this. It's called a whip, and it's kind of just like some rope. And they used it to hit Jesus a little bit, and it probably didn't feel so good. It probably hurt a lot, right? So here we have this. Benjamin continued to walk. If only he could make them release Jesus. But what could a small boy do? He heard loud cries as another crowd gathered at the end of the street. Hail, King Jesus! Yelled a soldier as Benjamin pushed his way past men and women. And there stood Jesus. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes as Roman soldiers threw a robe over his beaten back. He expected to see hatred, but instead saw only love. Just then, a soldier shoved a crown of thorns onto Jesus' head, and another stuck him with a stick. Benjamin's eyes filled with tears. Why were they doing this? A few days ago, everyone had called Jesus a king when he entered the city. Now it seemed they all didn't like him. Benjamin squatted down and buried his head in his hands. Please, God, he prayed. Please make them stop. When he finally opened his eyes, the crowd had moved along. Jesus was gone. He walked over to where they had scorned his friend and picked up a sharp thorn broken from the awful crown. He ran home. His parents paused to hear his story, then sadly shook their heads and returned to their work. Benjamin placed the thorn and leather strip in his box and cried. And our next egg, we have this. It's a crown, like a circle, and it's made out of pointy thorns. It's kind of hard to see them. But they were pretty sharp, and they put this on Jesus' head. And they probably pushed it down pretty hard, so it probably hurt a little bit, right? Can you kind of see it? Benjamin, called Eli, have you heard? Jesus is to be crucified. No, cried Benjamin, he's done nothing to deserve that. Eli frowned. My father says that only the worst criminals are put on a cross. Benjamin went inside and sat in a dark corner of his house. He did not want to talk or even think about the sad news, but in his mind, he could still see the men hurting Jesus, and he was sad. I must go, he finally said. If this is my fault, I can at least be there. I can pray for him. Where are you going? Asked his mother as he opened the door. To help a friend, he said. She nodded and touched his cheek. As Benjamin climbed the hill, he found a large spike. It was like those used by the soldiers to nail them to the crosses. He tucked it in his tunic and continued on. 3 crosses stood at the top, but he could not force his eyes to look upon his friend. He noticed a small group of people apart from the larger crowd. He knew they were Jesus' dearest friends. He sat near them and bowed to pray, but the only words that came were, I'm sorry, God. I'm so sorry. Our next egg is the yellow egg. So let's notice 2 things about this. First, We know this is shaped like a cross. And we just saw in the picture that they put Jesus on the cross when they wanted to kill him. And we can also see, if you look closer, that this cross is made out of nails, right? Because they used nails to put in his hands and his feet to make him stay on the cross. It doesn't sound very nice, does it? Right? It's definitely very sad to hear, right? That they did these things to Jesus. So let's see what happens. Benjamin watched as soldiers gambled for Jesus' clothes. He tried to shut his ears to their cruel remarks. Finally, he forced himself to look up. Benjamin looked into Jesus' eyes and saw such sorrow and pain that it cut to his heart. But he also saw love. And like before, Jesus looked right at Benjamin. Surely this was his way of saying all would be well. Perhaps he would even do a miracle. But instead, the sky turned dark, and Jesus cried out, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." The ground shook, and Jesus breathed his last breath. Benjamin was stunned. As if in a dream, Benjamin heard the people move about. He saw a soldier pierce his friend's side with a spear. People hurried to take down crosses and bodies before the Sabbath began. Soon they were gone, and he was alone. He picked up a stone the soldiers had gambled with and looked up at the dark sky. Why had God allowed it? Later that night, he opened his treasure box and placed the nail and the gambling stone inside. He looked at his collection. It had seemed so valuable when he believed Jesus was the king, but now the strange items only made him sad. We have 2 eggs to open for this page. First, we have this blue egg. Inside we have a dice, because it said that while Jesus was dying on the cross, people were playing games to see who could win his clothes. That doesn't sound very nice, does it? I don't think so. Our next egg, the dark purple. What do you think this is? What does it look like to you? I think that it's a spear, because it said on the page that after Jesus died, they took this spear, and it's kind of sharp on the end, and they poked it into his side to make sure that he was really dead. He wasn't alive anymore. All right. "Benjamin," called Eli the next morning, "come hear the news." Benjamin stuck his head out the window and rubbed his sleepy eyes. "They posted guards at Jesus' tomb," explained Eli. "Some say that Jesus will return to life." Benjamin perked up. "My grandfather told me that Jesus brought some people back from the dead." "Maybe it'll happen again," said Eli. "But the soldiers say they're making sure people don't steal the body." Quickly, Benjamin dressed and raced to the tomb. Could it be? Could Jesus have returned to life? Oh, he hoped so. But the huge stone remained in place, and the guards blocked the tomb. With dark, scowling faces, they told him to leave at once. As Benjamin walked slowly down the hill, he noticed a bit of white cloth hanging from a small branch. He plucked it off and rubbed it between his fingers. His parents made cloth like this for burials. "Jesus is dead," he said to himself as he continued to walk home. That night he sadly placed the cloth in his box. This would surely be the last thing to remember his friend by. He tried to pray, but no words came. He wondered if God even listened. Egg. This orange egg. Inside we have this white cloth. Right? And in the story, it talks about how they used this cloth to wrap up Jesus' body in before they put him in the tomb, which is kind of like a big empty cave where they kept him and put him safe. And in front of the cave, they put a giant, big, heavy rock that nobody could move, because they wanted to make sure that nobody could get in there and hurt Jesus' body while he was in the tomb. Early the next morning, Benjamin went to the market for his mother. He used to enjoy the crowds in the city, but now they only reminded him of how everyone had turned against Jesus. He shuffled along without looking up. "It's a miracle!" shrieked a girl. Benjamin stopped in his tracks and listened. Jesus has risen from the dead. The stone's been moved. Benjamin turned and ran away from the market and up towards the tomb. Could it possibly be true? Could Jesus have risen from the grave? In his heart, he believed it could be. It must be. He ran even faster. Sure enough, the stone was rolled away. He fell to his knees and thanked God. When he stood, he picked up a sharp piece of broken rock. It must have crumbled from the huge stone. With a joyful heart, he marched back down to town. Jesus was alive. In the market, he met a woman who was a friend of Jesus. I know the good news, he said. Jesus is alive. Yes, she smiled. It's as the prophet said, on the third day he will rise. Some of us have even seen him in person. Benjamin ran home and told his parents. He placed the stone in the box. What a treasure he had now. Our next egg is the pink egg. Inside, we have a stone. Because it said in front of the tomb, we just talked about how they had a big giant stone. And this is just a little one, but the one in front of the tomb was really big and really, really heavy. And nobody could move it by themselves. But on the third day after Jesus was buried, the stone was moved. His friends went to visit and they saw the stone was gone and his body wasn't in there. And they knew he was raised from the dead just like they said he would. We have one more egg. Let's see. During the next few days, Benjamin and Eli listened as the disciples shared about how Jesus had appeared to them in various places. Jesus said that all this came to pass just so forgiveness could be preached to all the people, beginning right here in Jerusalem. He said that since we all saw these things, now we can go out to tell others the good news. Benjamin smiled. Now he understood that Jesus had forgiven him too. He wanted to share the good news. He ran home and got his treasure box and went out into the streets and gathered all of his friends. Inside this box, he explained, is a great treasure. The children drew closer and listened with excitement. One by one, Jesus took out each item. He explained how he got it and what it all meant. And so you see, he said as he closed the box and looked into their faces, the treasure is really Jesus. Because of what Jesus did on the cross, we can all be forgiven by God the Father. They all cheered and begged him to tell the story again. Let's open our last egg. Let's see. Do you hear anything in there? Let's see. Oh. It's empty. Why do you think it might be empty? Because in the last one, we talked about how the rock got moved away and Jesus' body was gone. So this empty egg represents the empty tomb because Jesus wasn't in there anymore. And we know that he wasn't there anymore because he went to live in heaven with God, right? And because he went to live in heaven with God, we get to go live in heaven with God too when we die, which is really, really exciting. And that's what makes Easter so exciting. Let's finish our story. That night, Benjamin opened his box one more time before he went to bed. He examined each item, handling them all with love and care. Finally, he placed the last one back in the box. Then he knelt and prayed. Dear God, thank you for letting me find all these special treasures. But most of all, thank you for sending me the greatest treasure of all. Thank you for sending Jesus. And help me to be a good servant for Jesus. Help me to tell everyone I know about the good news. Amen. The end. So, I hope you really enjoyed the story. I enjoyed reading it with you and opening the eggs. So I hope you guys have a great Easter, and I look forward to reading some more stories with you. Have a great week. I miss you. Bye.